I read something, I believe it was in Robert Brumet's book this past week, that bringing mindful attention, being dedicated to bringing attention to how we speak with others is a profound spiritual practice. So how's your practice? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's my experience. Sometimes I do have a stronger spiritual practice than others in that regard. In fact, I was looking back over the past few days, and I saw two situations. I'm sure there were many more, but two situations in which I felt I really did well, bringing attention and being mindful of how I spoke. And then there was another occasion where I could have done better. And so in this mindfulness practice that we've been studying with Robert Brumet, we know that it's important to, first of all, be aware of ourselves, to be aware of what's happening. And one of the ways we become aware is to be mindful of what's going on in our bodies. What feelings are we having? What sensations are we feeling? And then to be accepting, to be actually accepting of whatever's happening. Not that it means, oh, I don't have to do anything about it, I don't have to try to do it better next time, but to just be accepting and not beat ourselves up. The next foundation principle of living originally from Robert Brumet has to do with forgiveness, and that includes self-forgiveness. To forgive myself when I miss the mark. In Unity, we go back to the origin of the word sin, and it means missing the mark. Missing the mark of our perfection. Okay? And then benevolence is the next foundation, and that's loving kindness. And to not only wish for all, that may all beings be happy, but also for myself. May I be happy, may I be free, may I be kind and loving, may I be, I like to say, abundantly prosperous in all ways. So to bring that loving kindness to myself. And then that brings us, those four are the foundation for compassionate communication. So a few days ago, a friend and I were speaking, and we were talking about a subject that we had very different perspectives on. And the old me, I believe, before I started really working on this mindfulness, would have tried to convince her that my perception was the right perception. Can you relate to that? Did you ever try to convince somebody that your perception? And the thing about perception is always true for the person having the perception. Right? And so to try to argue with another's perception is futile, and it's not helpful to creating a loving and sustaining a loving relationship. So we both agreed that we had different perceptions, and we agreed that we were going to try to change each other's perceptions, that we were going to go forth in our relationship with those different perceptions and work around it as best we can. And I felt really good about that. Then there was another incident where someone shared their feelings about something. And instead of being, going to that place of what I value and need, which is to be seen and heard, I shared my contrasting perception. And when I look back, I didn't feel good about it, but again, I had to accept that, okay, I'm not there yet, I'm still working on this, I am a work in progress. In 12-step work, we say, progress, not perfection. So I got a chance to see how that being mindful of how I communicate can really make a difference. Because I think when we make mistakes, that's really helpful, because mistakes are stepping stones to growth, to learning, to success. And so we have to take our mistakes and, again, be aware of how we felt. I didn't feel good when I didn't when I miss the mark. So to be aware of that, to accept that, okay, that's what I did, this is the feeling I have as a result of it, and then to be forgiving and kind and loving to myself, so that maybe next time I'll do it better, you know, because we always get another chance, right? I remember being in therapy years ago in one of my marriages. There's only been two. Seems like more, but there were only two. And I remember I would, the therapist would tell me the way I needed to handle a given situation. And then I'd go back the next time and say, oh, I blew it, I didn't do it. And he said, don't worry, you'll get another opportunity. And he was right. We always have another opportunity to do it right. So when I look at the fact that all of us are in a relationship with someone, you know, unless we're in solitary confinement, we are all in relationships. And one of the most important and significant components of relationship is communication. Do you agree? Yes. I mean, that's where all the challenges arise, right? Challenges arise because of different perceptions of the situation. Challenges arise in just so many ways in our relationships. So I can't think of a better spiritual practice for us to set our mind to and set our intention for than compassionate communication. And this is based, you know, so much on the Buddhist teaching of right speech. And right speech, basically there's two components of it: to tell the truth, to speak the truth, and to speak it in a manner that is not harmful, if you will. So that includes a lot of things. It's not being critical of people. It's being kind and loving, and not participating in idle gossip. That's what Bernal Fillmore used to talk about a lot. Our co-founder, Fillmore, is not participating in idle talk and gossip. So in being mindful, then I can really consider what I'm saying. And sometimes I have to consider it after the fact because I'm on a learning curve, okay? We're all on a learning curve. So that I can really consider, you know, was that kind? Was it loving? Was it truthful? Was it even necessary to be spoken? Mm-hmm. And that reminded me of a story that of a couple that I know who have been married many, many years, and they have a very peaceful marriage. And I was at dinner with them one night, a number of years ago, and the wife couldn't find her glasses. She was digging through her purse, she couldn't find her glasses. And the husband said, I'll go look in the car. And so she said, oh good, I must have left them in the car. And she went to the restroom. And this particular person had a little bit of a physical disability that made walking a little challenging. But he got up and he left the restaurant, he went to the car, he came back, and the glasses weren't in the car. So he looked in her purse, and there they were. So he set them on the table at her place, and I said, "Oh wow, she's going to feel horrible that she had overlooked it." And he said, "Oh, I won't tell her." I had never witnessed such compassionate speech. He didn't. And I was just dumbfounded. Because, you know, we all learn from how life has been modeled for us or whatever. And that was such a powerful modeling that was so different than most of what I've learned in our culture in terms of how to deal with people. And so that made a very profound impact on me. And then I thought of another story that some of you may have heard about the mother who goes, it's Mother's Day, and she goes to dinner. Her son and his housemate have her over for dinner. And during dinner, she notices that there's a little spark between these two supposed housemates, right? You know, and she's just noticing this, and her son says, now, Mom, I know what you're thinking, and trust me, Mary and I are just housemates. That's our relationship. We're just housemates. And the mom says, oh, you know, that's fine, whatever. So a couple of days later, Mary says to John, have you seen our gravy ladle? You know, we had it at dinner when your mom was here, but I can't find it. And I don't want to say that your mom took it or anything, but could you ask her? Maybe she knows what happened to the gravy ladle. So he says, okay. So he was very mindful in his speech, very mindful. And he calls his mom, and he says, Mom, now I'm not saying that you took the gravy ladle, and I'm not saying that you didn't take it, but we haven't been able to find the gravy ladle since you were here for Mother's Day. And the mom very mindfully replies, well, you know, John, I'm not saying that you're sleeping with Mary, and I'm not saying that you're not sleeping with Mary. But if Mary had been sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the gravy ladle. So anyway, so we can say things tactfully. we can speak tactfully and try to prove we can prove our points indirectly instead of directly. And then the final story I have to tell you, Janine said, where's Janine? Is she here today? Okay, there's Janine. I'm telling you, I got an email from Janine the other day, one of her ponderisms for the day. And the ponderism talked about Mildred. Mildred was a church gossip, and the one who self-appointed herself as keeper of the morals of people in the church. Now, this obviously wasn't this church. We don't have any. And, you know, people really didn't like that she did it, but nobody wanted to confront her because they didn't want something being said about them. But this new guy came to the church one day, and his name was Frank. And Frank was kind of a low-key guy, whatever. And Mildred started telling people that Frank was an alcoholic, not in recovery, and that she knew this because she saw his truck parked in front of the liquor store, you know, one night, and therefore, you know, that evidence spoke for itself that his car was parked in front, truck was parked in front of the liquor store, that he was an alcoholic. And Frank didn't say anything to her. He didn't, you know, try to prove her wrong or anything. He was very quiet, unassuming guy. And so what he did instead was, that night, he drove his truck over to Mildred's house. And he parked in front of her house. And he walked home and he left his car there all night. And the last line of the story was, you gotta love Frank. So, you know, there's, you know, I don't know if those are the most positive ways to communicate, but they are ways of getting the point across in a way that's compassionate and doesn't go around trying to point the finger to somebody being wrong or whatever. And I just think it's really interesting that today, my message is on compassionate communication. Because compassionate communication is about speaking from the heart. And a few weeks ago, several of us in the room, Jillian did a great job, Pam did a great job last weekend, Peg's coming up next week, and Kathleen and Christine, and did I leave anybody else? No? Who? No, she was pointing to somebody. Anyway, we went to this wonderful workshop called Speak From Your Heart Without Notes. And so I did it, and it was on this day, because you know what speaking from the heart without notes is all about is to really connect with people and not be distracted by so much content and looking at the notes and whatever. And so I think it's really interesting that today was my first day of putting that into practice. So and so how do we put this idea of compassionate communication into practice? Well, we know first and foremost, prayer and meditation. And of course that, so much of that is involved in, if you're reading the book, if you haven't got the book, it's time to get one, or buy it on Kindle or whatever, and start doing the practices. And about the self-awareness, the self-acceptance, forgiveness, benevolence, and compassionate communication. And tonight, if you want to join us at 6 p.m. for our sunset meditation, mindfulness meditation and dialogue, we will be meditating with Robert Brumet's compassionate communication meditation, and then we will dialogue about it, and so we can share some of our challenges or successes or whatever. So that's one way. And that's really the whole way. The prayer, the meditation, the mindfulness. It's all about mindfulness and knowing that communication is the key factor, the key component in every relationship that we have. And so if your relationship isn't working, you can make a difference by taking the first step to be a compassionate communicator. And I know that to the extent that each of us do that, that we will be having a profound spiritual experience that transforms our relationship with ourselves, because we feel better about ourselves, and with others. And I am so grateful that we're willing to say, yes! Are you willing to say?
Yes!
Yes! Let's go do it. And let's begin right now in a sacred time of shared prayer. And so I invite us to become mindful. Mindful of the breath, allowing it to find its own rhythm and pace. Mindful of our body. What physical sensations are we aware of in this moment? And just accepting them, whether they're unpleasant or pleasant. Just being aware, letting come to mind a time when we missed the mark of compassionate communication. Bring it to mind, not to beat ourselves up about it, but just to be aware of it. And to accept that at that moment, that was the best we could do. Perhaps be aware of how it feels when you think back of that situation. Where do you feel it in your body? Just be grateful for this awareness. I'll now invite you to shift states and be aware of a time when you practiced compassionate communication. A time when you were really present to someone with an open and listening heart. A time when you supported, nourished, or inspired another. And be aware of how that feels. celebrate that each and every one of us has an opportunity to transform our relationship with ourselves, with others, through compassionate communication, by bringing attention, dedicated attention, to how we speak. And I would add how we speak to ourselves as well as how we speak to others. And to just take a moment to set an intention, to speak from the heart in a way that you would like to be spoken to. And to just feel how that feels in the silence. And as we gently bring our attention back to this time and place, silently saying thank you, compassionate communicator that I am, for the dedication of bringing awareness, acceptance, forgiveness, and loving kindness to my communication, and therefore my relationship with myself and with others. Thank you, compassion. Thank you, love. Thank you, kindness. That it is so, and so it is, and so we are.